Memphis, I'm back. I told y'all were going to get double duty of me today. We're tonight's service, and I'm right back here. All right, so I hope that y'all can tolerate hearing my voice and hear me preach 2 times in one day, because you got it now. There's no other choice. But this word for me is a little bit different, and I'm still staying in the Father's Day theme and dealing with the aspect of fathers. Now, but I want to run this, we're going to run this with just a touch different than what we've been doing. And I know we've been in a series dealing with the gift and dealing with Holy Spirit. But I wanted to be sure I took this day, and I believe the liberty that I've got the ability to take and really speak to the context and the culture of even what's transpiring in the house in Memphis, and to give a little bit of boost and encouragement from a different angle. Because it is Father's Day, many of you all know, and you're well aware that you all have, for me, one of the greatest leaders within the context of not just this movement, but even within the context of our nation, and Apostles Brandon and Christabel Clack. And I love them both with my entire heart. And this evening, in taking on this word, I felt led to give you all some encouragement, but to also send him some. And I'm going to ask you all to do something for me that I consider to be pretty significant at the end of this message. I want you to go with me real quick to Exodus, the 17th chapter. Exodus 17, it is a very familiar passage of scripture. Some of you all may have heard me even dive into this in one way or another in a couple of different contexts, but I want to kind of open this up for you, and I'm hoping that in the next few moments all this is going to make sense. Here it is. In verse 8, and I'm reading from the Amplified Version, here's what it says. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekites' army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner, Jehovah Nissi. He said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Just for a few moments, I want to preach and talk to you from this theme. We're going to hold up your hands. Very simple, but I'm going to make it make sense in the context of All Nations Memphis specifically. And I know that there are a myriad of people that are watching from several different spaces throughout the country. But I'm speaking very specifically to a house in a moment where you all, even on Father's Day, have found yourself under significant and a little different type of crisis than what we are accustomed to. And I want this to be a moment where your prophetic affirmation over your leader is that in this time of crisis, we are committed to holding your hands up. Very few really understand and can really take full grasp of the challenges of being a Moses, of having the build-up and the complexities of one who is called to bring a people out and take a people in. We often love the style and the type of leadership that comes with pomp and circumstance, but it's very sometimes challenging to accept the type of calls and the type of leaders that are called to pull you out of one place and to take you into another. And I'm going to tell you why this is significant on a Father's Day. God has sent you a spiritual father, a voice. And I believe that everyone that is from Memphis that is a part of this chat tonight can resonate with this. God has sent a voice to you that has brought you out to bring you in. And though you have not completely made the journey into the future, when you look back over your tenure in being connected to a right thing, you can look over your shoulder and say everything has not been perfect, but I have definitely made progress beyond my wildest imagination. If that's you, I want you to just to put this in the chat real quick. Thank you for your yes. Now, you're just communicating in a chat. You may not consider it to be very much, but I want you to take just a couple seconds, and I want you to affirm the Father that God has given you over a house and tell him again, thank you for your yes. Because what most don't see that transpires in the context of leadership are the private moments where we fight and where we battle with God to give us an opportunity to do something different. I'm going to try not to cry as I do this. We love God with all of our heart. We love God's people with everything that we've got. But if we had an option to do anything else, we have asked and we have begged God to give us a different alternative. I know even for your pastor in his dream world right now, he would be preparing for retirement from the NBA, or he would be preparing to walk away from a career overseas. Had we headed another way, we would have done another thing. It is difficult to be a deliverer to a people that have been stuck in a deficit for decades, for a people that have only seen life and reality out of one lens. And now God's about to arm your mouth with a word that unseats them from everything they've been comfortable with. And you don't know how well you're going to be received going into an area and a context where you may not have a rank and or authority, but only thing that you know is that you got a word from God. It is extremely challenging to know that God has anointed you for an assignment you have asked him to release you from. And I'm telling you, if you have met a pastor, an apostolic leader or voice, a prophet that would say, I always wanted to do this, I will look them face to face and call them a liar. Because no matter how great you're called and no matter how powerfully you've embraced it, there is and has been and sometimes still is moments where we have to fight and wrestle with God and say, God, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. I'm trying not to get too excited just yet. I don't know if I've got everything that it takes. It's like Moses. Moses says, God, finally, can you just send somebody else? Can you find another alternative? Because I don't believe that I got it to give it. But here is the word. It is the place where you realize you don't have it, where you actually do. When you know that there's an end of you in the context of what you've been called to, you have now opened up the door for the grace of God to walk you in a space that you would have never known outside of it. What I love about your pastor, what I love about the apostle of all nations, Memphis, is this. He knows that there's a place where he ends and where the grace of God has got to begin. What I love about his leadership style, what I love about the way that he even communicates the word of God in moments of difficulty and crisis is that he knows there's a place where he ends and a place where God has to carry him a little bit further. Moses goes and you all know he goes to Pharaoh. He prophesies that the Lord has said, let my people go. They go through all this pomp and circumstance, all these days, and some would say a couple of years of drama before finally the children of Israel are released. They get to the Red Sea. Moses, with his staff in his hand, lifts up his hand. The seas open up. They go across on dry land. Exodus 15 is All Nations Memphis theme song. Miriam brings out the tambourine and she starts to play like a mad woman, and they begin to sing the song of the Lord and the song of deliverance. But here is the challenge. On the other side of every deliverance is a new dilemma. It does not matter. I don't care how great your deliverance was. I don't care how powerfully God brought you out. On the other side of every deliverance, you're going to find yourself in a new dilemma. God does not just deliver you for you to have smooth sailing and for everything to be cool and copacetic the rest of your life. Anytime God delivers you and he puts you in a new norm, he puts you in a new circumstance, he puts you in a new set of experiences that you have not walked out yet, there are going to be dilemmas on the other side of your deliverance. Now, the challenge is when you face the dilemma, not blaming your deliverer for the dilemma you're in. Just because God used them as a voice to be a bridge to get you over does not mean that every crisis that now pops off is their fault. God will use them as the reason and the why that pulls you out and pulls you over. And now you have to cooperate and collaborate with the one God used in one season to help you get to your next. Here is the beauty of this text and where we are. In this moment, Moses has already had the intersection where they did not have water and it struck a rock, and out of a rock came water, and the prophetic really implications on even a rock being struck and water breaking forth out of it. They have already had the moment where manna and quail is all of a sudden sent from heaven, where God is reassuring the people, you may not be eating flank steak like you did in Egypt, but even in a wilderness, I'll make manna taste just like it. I will give you a context where I'm providing for you in ways that supersede your wildest imagination. They have walked across waters, but watch this. They have lived in Egypt for 400 years. They have walked 430 years. They've walked across water now. They've watched water come from a rock, but nobody's prepared them for war. They've walked across water. They have drank water, but they have not been war prepared. They find themselves in a crossroad of people, a body, and a Gus body of people, over 1 million people now on the other side of the Red Sea. And this vast army of men and women have not prepared themselves for war. And in that moment, an enemy comes in unaware, because very often it is not when you're preparing for it that you see the enemy show up. It's in the moments where you weren't looking for anything to transpire that you've got to learn how to operate on the fly and make things happen. Yeah, it's the moments when a pandemic breaks out all of a sudden and you've got your own private crisis in your own personal life that now you still have to be pushed to the edge to operate and be for a people what God has ordained and called you to be. Because whenever hell breaks loose, it normally breaks loose on multiple facets and fronts simultaneously. Here is Moses leading a people that are grumbling, but they're drinking. They're grumbling, but they're eating. And their grumble has not had time to prepare them for the rumble in a war with another set of people who are very strategic and very trained warriors. When you look at the history of Amalek and the Amalekites, these are men who are trained and skilled warriors who are now descending on the children of Israel. Men of war who are born to fight are now coming upon a people that have not learned how to. And in a moment, in one single moment, Moses has to come up with a prophetic strategy for how to handle what the dilemma that they have now found themselves in. Never discount the strategies that your leader has to all of a sudden pull from heaven in a moment where he wasn't expecting for it to happen either. I don't want you to think that just because everything seems smooth and kosher and all these services have went off without a hitch, y'all didn't raise tens of thousands of dollars in the middle of a quarantine. I don't want you to think all these things happen without a hitch just because God is amazingly working through us and he's just gonna make it rain on us at our will. No. God still has to have a vessel to partner with in the earth so that he may create what it is that he sees. What I'm grateful for All Nations Memphis is that you have a father that is so submitted to the Father that when God speaks, he's a man that moves just like God. Now, y'all, everybody may not agree with this. Everybody may not see it from my lens, but I think that my view and my perspective has a little bend to it because of the place of access that I have in his life and his heart. I know that this is a man that even in his most challenging season, he's still a man who's submitted to God. He's still a father that wants to see the will and the wisdom of God be made full manifest in the people that he's called to cover. I'm telling you, even in the midst of the Zoe crisis, he had a week that maybe a week that he was not talking about stuff related to the church. And then right after that, he began to ask questions. He began to poke and prod. Even while he's going through his own personal piece, his burden is still for the house and for the people that God has called him to cover. And just as Moses, he has found himself at a time of dilemma, at a moment of crossroad where he has to be sure that my personal life doesn't impede just also on what God has called me to ultimately cover. Here's what transpires. Amalekites decide to descend on the children of Israel. Moses comes up with a strategy, and here is his strategy. I'm going to go to the top of the hill. Joshua, I need you to find some warriors in the midst of all these men, and I need the men who are willing to war to go down and fight on our behalf against the Amalekites. Here's a strategy. I find a man that's got the grace to help me carry it because I can only do so much. I'm a deliverer, I'm not a warrior. Here it is. You've got to be able to not impose upon your leaders the pressures of being more than what they're actually called to be. It is dangerous to put and impede upon their purpose the personalities that you think they should become without seeing clearly who God has built them to be. Everybody cannot be the Joshua. Somebody has to be the Moses. But hear me, the only way Joshua wins is because Moses is in the right spot, not trying to fight a fight that he wasn't called to fight. Woo! I want you to hear me. God has given a very specific call and nature to your leader. And when God has given him a very specific call and or nature, he does it in a way to help build up the overall narrative. He is not called and will not have the ability or the fluidity to do everything that everybody thinks that he should. As long as he's doing what God has called and ordained him to be and to do, that is the place where you find the difference. When Moses tells Joshua to get in battle array and let our people line up that they may fight against our enemy, Moses goes and he goes to a high place, watch, and he carries two with him. He carries an Aaron and he carries a Hur. He carries two men, two priests, to the top of the mountain with him so that he can have a different perspective than the rest on what's actually transpiring in the midst of the war. Now, in this moment, Moses only knows one strategy. He doesn't have any other. Moses does not have a duplicity of different strategies or a multiplicity of different strategies to lean into in the time of war. Moses has never been in war. Moses has never been a man that was trained or learned in the skill of fighting. But what Moses does know is this. Every time I lift up my hands, heaven responds. He has learned from the backside of the desert to the Red Sea that whenever I take the weapon that God has given me, the staff of God, and I lift my hands, heaven always responds to my need. And the beauty of all of this for you is this. It's here, right here. Whenever your leader lifts his hands, heaven responds. Every time, listen to me, if it's in prayer, if it's in worship, sometimes the lifting of hands really transpires in the dancing of feet. Every time his hands go up, there's a victory and a win on the other side of it. Now, here is the strategy in it. Here is the challenge therein. Though my only war strategy is worship, though my only war strategy is praise, it is very possible that I can be a leader that loves those I'm warring for more and I get fatigued. It's very possible that the way God built you and the way that God built your leader is that he can love you with all of his heart, but he can still get fatigued as he holds his hands up to ensure you keep winning. Though he wants you to win internally, physically, emotionally, there is a fatigue that will come upon you in a moment where you're trying to be sure everybody wins. The only thing that you can do is let your hand slip down. Now, there are several issues with me in the context of this particular scripture, and one of them is this. Aaron and Hur are there with him initially, and even being there with him initially, there's a place where Moses' hands fall. If there are the right assignments that are called and connected to your life, when you are called to be a leader and God has allowed you to ascend to see what others can't, there should never be a place where your leader's hands fall and you are in space or in the pocket to be sure that it should not have happened. Today, I am pulling, this Father's Day, I am pulling for the rising and the resurrection of the Aarons and the Hurs. Your placement and your responsibility may have more weight than the Joshuas of the house. If you're in place and your leader's hands fall, the whole nation and the whole house is in jeopardy just because of poor placement. Meaning, it's not enough to be in his company if in his company I'm not committed to hold his hands up. It's not enough to say that I'm a son if my sonship means that I'm entitled, but it doesn't mean I have to bear the burden of ensuring that he does not fall. More than any other season in their lives, I want you to hear me by the Spirit of grace. More than any other season in their entire lives, this is a season where the entire Clack family and the father of your house needs to ensure that the Aarons and Hurs are in place. I applaud. Right now, I publicly affirm the leaders and the leadership of All Nations Memphis. There have been men and women every week that have knocked the ball out of the daggum park. And I affirm over you the blessing of the Lord and heaven's affirmation and hand clap over everything that you're doing to ensure that a house and a people stay together. And even beyond that, here is what I'm calling for. There are more Aarons and Hurs in the company that have been silent in a moment where you bring a strength to the table that's going to make the whole table better. I believe that just because there is a temporary crisis, it does not mean your leader's hands have to fall. You have the ability to strengthen and uphold him to ensure that even in a crisis, he does not miss what it is God is actually doing and saying for him over the people. What they do, instead of allowing Moses to stand in the greatest crisis and the greatest fatigue of his journey, they give him a safe place to sit. Because hear me, every father needs a place in the midst of those that are committed to his destiny where he can sit and be able to be vulnerable enough to say, I want to stand in this, but I don't know how. I want with everything in me to be the one that's leading it courageously, and I don't want you to see what is a perceived weakness. But if I don't take a seat, though my hands may be held up, my legs are going to give way. And I want you to ensure that your pastor, your leaders' feet stay like Hans' feet. Part of the way you do that is giving him a safe place to sit. Letting him know that we love you and we don't expect you to be Superman. We understand that as strong and as spiritual and as discerning and as revelatory as you are, there's a side of you that's immensely human. There's a side of you who cries tears that nobody sees. There's a side of you whose heart breaks over not being able to understand in a moment what God is doing in a season. And rather than trying to ask you a myriad of different questions beyond the context of this current season, what we'll do is give you a safe place to sit. When you can give him a safe place to sit, he can still hold his hands up and not worry about walking into ticking time bombs that may explode unaware. He can be safe and be strength all at the same time, because every man, every leader, every apostolic voice wants a place where I can be safe and I can be strong simultaneously. Yeah, I need to take a seat. You may not see me doing it how you've seen me do it in times past, but I still have a strength if I've got the right support. Aaron and Hur hold up his arms, and Joshua is unaware why there are these waves in the battle. In the waves of the battle, the children of Israel, an untrained people, in one season are winning triumphantly. And then in another moment, they begin to lose. And they don't understand that their loss is directly connected to the strength that is in the man that's on the mountain. He ascends high so he can hear and see what God is saying, and so that he can see what's happening in the battle. But even in a high place, he'll get tired. With the right people around him, the Aarons and the Hurs, Moses takes a seat, holds the staff of God in his hand, and with the support of generations on either side, he is able to keep his hand up so that the battle can be won. It takes a whole team to win the battle that you're in. The beauty of your leader is that he knows he cannot do it by himself. The beauty of having a father that's aware that I need all of this to work in conjunction for it to work appropriately. It speaks levels to the longevity of what God has assigned and ordained you to do and to be and become. As long as his hands are up, they win. The moment his hands fall, they lose. But with the right help, the right team, the right squad, they lift his hands boldly. And they lift him even though he's tired, he doesn't feel the same weight. Even though mentally he's taxed, it doesn't feel the same. And on the other side of the victory, he gets a revelation from God. I want you to write this down because I'm about to show you something that Joshua's going to need later. Put it in the scrolls for generations that aren't leading yet, but they're on the front line. Let them know I'm going to blot out Amalek and everything in it. And it happens in the life, in the rulership of Saul. Let them know I'm going to blot out everything within the Amalekites. But then he adds one valuable piece of revelation. Something that they would not have seen had Moses not had the right support. He says, tell them I am Jehovah Nissi. I am the Lord who is the banner that waves over you. I'm the Lord who goes before you. The victory wasn't just in the fact that Moses' hands stayed stretched. It wasn't the staff. As Moses' hands went up, it was the representation of the banner. The staff morphed into the banner. And when you held the banner high, the people won. He gave them the reminder that there's revelation even in the staff on the other side of a critical season. I am the Lord who goes before you, and I wave over you as a banner. All Nations Memphis, in my eyes, you have an aspect or a side of a tremendous Moses. You have a man that's well-tempered. You have a man that it takes a lot to push him over an edge. You have a man, a leader, a father who loves you and watch, intercedes for you, even in moments where it seems as if there is rebellion on every side. He doesn't allow a moment of perceived rebellion to make him stop hitting his face for what it is he's called to be and do for you. You have a Moses. And today, we honor the father of this house, the father of Zion, Nyla, Noah, Zoe, and everyone that's been born out of the house as All Nations Memphis. And today, publicly, as a brother, as a leader, I affirm over you, Brandon Clack, you are doing a better job than you've given yourself credit for. It is okay that you have taken time to close in, to heal your family, to strengthen your house, and to even strengthen your own heart. I appreciate your submission and being willing to walk away for a season so you're sure you're prepared for the next. I honor the grace that's on your life. I honor the miracle working power and capability that you've been anointed with and for. And I declare that even in this season, in the moment of crisis and crossroads, God is expanding your capacity, both emotionally, mentally, and physically, beyond the threshold where you've already been. You are not going to tap out. You are not going to quit. You are not going to forsake this assignment, because you have generations looking up to you and believing you carry the voice that will bring them deliverance. So today, publicly, in this chat and on this screen, we affirm and speak well of the strength and grace you've been called to lead with. And we declare on this Father's Day, thank you for your yes. And may God cause your days to be multiplied in the earth, because you willingly gave him a yes in the toughest season of your life. When you wanted to walk away, you didn't allow your flesh to override your history. And because you have history with God, this is simply a new chapter that's going to be written in the book that is Brandon Clack. We love you, and we believe that we have not seen the best that God is going to do in your life. All Nations Memphis, in this chat, if y'all believe that, before I go any further, I want you to take a couple moments, and I want you to drop the affirmations on the Father of your house. I want you, and I'm not going to tell you what to say. I want this to be something that your pastor can go back and watch, go back and read, go back and see in his own moment of conflict where he's trying to negotiate his yes. That there is an army of people that believe in what he's called to be and do. I want you just real quick, affirm him, strengthen him. Let your words fortify his heart. Let your words build strength and empowerment into him. Build him up in his most holy faith. Let this be a moment where you build him and allow him to see what it is, the totality of his destiny and what he's called to be and do. Build him. Just a few more moments. Build him up. Give him the word of the Lord. Build him up. Strengthen him. Strengthen his heart. Now, I want you to do, and I'm going to ask you, normal circumstances, I don't even know what you all may have already done and or planned for him on this day. But I'm going to ask something very special of you, All Nations Memphis, and even all those that are watching. As soon, the moment I end this broadcast, this moment I'm done on the screen, I want you to text a number, a seed, to 77977, NYMEM 77977. When that link pops up on your phone, I want you to scroll and select the option that says Pastoral Love Offer or Pastoral Love Seed. I want you to select that option. And today, ending this Father's Day, I want you to send the seed to the man who you know God has used and is using to change your life. I want you to seed into what he's called to be, seed into what he's doing. Send him a seed that just appreciates him for on this day and for everything he's brought you out and is going to bring you to. NYMEM to 77977. Select the option that says Pastoral Love Offering or Pastoral Love Seed. And for that, and for your obedience therein, I pray that God allows you to see blessing, increase, and return on a seed of sacrifice into the voice that's helping to shape your future. All Nations Memphis, I love y'all. I'm going to be in the city, even if I'm not in your house. I'm going to be in the city very soon to love on your first family and for my family, because we are family, to love on them hard. Today, I just wanted to be sure I got this word out so that you will continue to be strength to the leader God has called to triumphantly take you into a future. I love y'all. To all the fathers, happy Father's Day. I celebrate you. We love you as well. I pray the blessing of the Lord upon you that makes you rich, adds no sorrow. In Jesus' name. I'll see you soon.
What an incredible word.
Amazing.
Amazing. We hope you enjoyed today's word. We hope you were encouraged, your life was blessed, and you were enriched.
And to stay connected with us here at All Nations Memphis, you can follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also visit our website, allnationsmem.com.
Yes, and make sure you join us here on Wednesday night for our midweek worship experience. We will see you then.